What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 17 NFL Power Rankings. As always, I'll be ranking all 32 teams. But before I get into it, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below, where we will be doing our 500 subscriber giveaway. We just did our 200 one and got in contact with him. So now, if you want to be entered into our 500 subscriber giveaway, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's all you have to do to be entered. We'll start here at 32 with the last place Indianapolis Colts. And they're showing on Monday Night Football just made me feel like I had to put them here. Quarterback switch didn't do anything. Nick Foles struggled with 3 interceptions. Offense only got 173 yards, 1-8 in their last 9 with a 5-game losing streak. And now they go into the Giants and, well, Giants win that game and they are in the playoffs. And it's looking like almost a lock for them to get in, especially with how bad this Colts team is playing. 31, the Denver Broncos got absolutely obliterated on Christmas. And, well, the result, Nathaniel Hackett got fired and didn't even get to finish his first full year as an NFL head coach. And, it just shows that maybe it was him the problem, but now Russ has to prove it these last 2 games going into Kansas City this week, which was always a tough task. But if he can somehow put up a decent performance in that one, then maybe it really was the head coaching performance. 30, the Houston Texans are moving up 2 spots, even though they have 2 less losses than those teams. They jumped to 30 because they upset the Titans in Tennessee to snap a 9-game losing streak and really screw up those AFC South standings. Now, Jacksonville holds the tiebreaker in first place position right now in the AFC South, and now they play Jacksonville at home. And if they pull off another upset, then it'll just be back to Tennessee in first if they can get a win this week. But they do still have the number 1 pick in next year's draft. Davis Mills is all right, I guess. He's doing his thing, nothing too spectacular, but they're almost a lock to take a quarterback, it feels like, at this point in the season. 29, the Chicago Bears move up 1, even with a tough loss against the Bills. This is just due to, those Broncos and being really bad. And the Bears, well, they have had some games where they've came down to the wire and almost pulled it off. But this week wasn't one of them. Struggled late in the second half and really made the score look like it was a lot worse than it was. They had that lead at half, 10-7, and then the second half game and just utterly exploded. And now they have that 8-game losing streak to go and play in Detroit to possibly knock them out of the playoffs. 28, the Arizona Cardinals lose a heartbreaker in OT against the Bucs and really could have shaken up the NFC South standings as well, but they did not with that loss. The big storyline here was DeAndre Hopkins only having 1 catch for 4 yards on 10 targets. And, they were just out of sync, him and McSorley. McSorley tried to get him the ball as much as he could, but it just didn't work out. But on a positive side, Greg Dortch and James Conner had some great games as they look to go upset the Falcons. And we have those Falcons here at 27, falling back a few spots with a tough loss in Baltimore. And they got are eliminated from the playoffs now with that loss in Baltimore. And they could have won that game and still been in contention for the NFC South, but it just didn't happen as they're riding a 4-game losing streak. And at one point, this team was possibly a team that could sneak into the playoffs by winning the NFC South, but it just didn't happen their way. Desmond Ridder has been mid so far in his first starts, and he's just going to look to improve in his next 2 games before next year. 26, the Cleveland Browns are officially eliminated now from the playoffs with that must-win game for them, and they lost at home. And Deshaun Watson has done absolutely nothing to prove to me that he is worth all his guaranteed money this year. And, ever since he's been back, this Browns team has not really shown up and missed a beat. Yes, I know the weather was bad in this one, but he still threw it 31 times, and that's all he's got to show for it. You can't blame that all on the conditions. 25, the Los Angeles Rams get a huge win on Christmas at home. And I think the big storyline here is Baker Mayfield, absolutely shredding this Denver Broncos defense that was a top defense in the league. Only 4 incompletions. And the other big storyline for Baker is, can he possibly re-sign, stay another year, back up Matthew Stafford, or maybe they look somewhere else as well. But I don't think they will because of his money and his whole situation. But Baker could be a very good backup next year for this Rams team. 24, the New Orleans Saints. Psych, they moved down 1 after a win over the Browns. And, it's kind of weird. I'm moving them down here after a win, but it just seems like there's other teams that just deserve to be higher than these Saints. They were 0-6 in outdoor games this year until they go into Cleveland and beat them. They're still in that NFC South race, need a lot to happen, and got to beat the Eagles this week to stay alive. And Andy Dalton is going to have to play out of his mind this week if they want to make that happen. 23, I have those Panthers who are still in it as well in the NFC South. And if they beat the Bucks this week, they just have to win the last week of the season to get into the NFC North because they already have beat the Bucks. And if they beat them again this week, then they have the head-to-head record with them. If those Saints lose too this week and the Panthers win, they clinch it as well. So Panthers have a lot on the line this week, the biggest game of their season, and somehow, some way, they destroyed the Lions on the ground. 364 first half yards, set the franchise record, so on and so forth. If this Panthers team makes the playoffs after what happened at the beginning of the season, get rid of Baker, dump him, PJ Walker at one point. Now Sam Darnold's playing pretty good. I mean, it's going to be an amazing story no matter how far they go. 22, the Las Vegas Raiders drop back into the 20s. And this is because they blew a late lead and they're not officially eliminated, but mathematically it's less than 1% chance for them to make it right now. They need a lot to happen. They're going to have to win out, obviously. They do play the Raiders or the 49ers this week, which is a tough task. Could he possibly be on the move next year as well? Will be a big storyline this offseason. But for right now, you just got to look at the Raiders they've had this year and just how they haven't capitalized. 21, the New England Patriots move back a lot after this one. And this is in part to them being down 22 to nothing at half. But they come roaring back, but just fall short. And they missed 2 extra points, can't convert a 2-point conversion at one point. And they had first and goal with 1 minute left in the game and just couldn't do it. The fumble, and then it's game over. Mac Jones played pretty good, I think, from most of his games this year. The defense obviously had a pick 6 of Burrow and stepped up to the challenge and held them scoreless in the second half. So the defense did their job, put them in a position to win, but it just couldn't. 20, the Steelers move up after they rally late to squeak by the Raiders in the Franco Harris game. And, obviously it was great to see them celebrate his legacy, retiring his number after his passing late last week. And now what's in front of them? They have the Ravens. Got to beat them this week to get to 8-8 and keep those playoff chances alive. If they win next week as well, then they finish with 9-8 record, possibly a chance to squeak in the playoffs and keep Mike Tomlin's winning season streak alive. 19, the Jets are moving back one spot with a ugly loss on Thursday Night Football against the Jaguars. They've lost 6 of their last 8. They have that longest playoff drought in NFL right now with 11 years. And they put in Chase Streveler to replace Zach Wilson. So more than likely, Zach Wilson is done for the year. He's going to be inactive the whole year, and he's expected to get moved this offseason. It's going to be Mike White, and then it's going to be Joe Flacco, QB1 and 2, going on for so forth. But this Jets team somehow, some way still has a shot to make the playoffs. It's an ugly way, but they can do it, and they need a big win in Seattle this week. 18, Tennessee Titans. Don't want to talk about this team too much because of how bad they've been playing. 5th straight loss, first time since 2015. Week 18 decides who wins the AFC South for this team. It doesn't matter what happens this week. So they might rest Derrick Henry. He's kind of dealing with something this week, Thursday against the Cowboys. And we're going to have to see if they put him on the field. But Malik Willis needs to play better. 23 passes and 2 interceptions and 99 yards. Not good. But the running game was very productive if you do want to take a positive out of that. But they have a tough task ahead of them. 17, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers move back into, the middle of the pack here with a big overtime win against the Cardinals. They can clinch the NFC South this week with a win over the Panthers. And Leonard Fournette played good. Brady, ho-hum, check down, go deep, incompletion yet again. And the Brady Evans connection just has been missing these last few months. And if they can get that back on track in time for the playoffs, assuming they make it, well, then this Bucs team, might pull off an upset or two. 16, the Seattle Seahawks, a lot in front of them to lose. This team still has a shot to make the playoffs, but they've lost 5 of their last 6, meaning that this team at one point was 6-3 and just squandered the opportunity they had in front of them. Geno Smith has really reduced his play on what we were seeing the first half of the season, and this team just struggled the second half. Kenneth Walker's been playing great when he's healthy. Held the Chiefs under 300 yards. So the defense is still playing great. It's just the offense is starting to sputter. 15, the Green Bay Packers. My Packers, as you can see back there, got the big win on Christmas Day over Miami in Miami. And how they get in is they win their next 2, and either Washington loses or Giants lose the next 2 as well. And, realistically, Washington has a tough matchup. Week 18 against Dallas, and Dallas is going to be playing for seeding in the playoffs. So more than likely, Washington's going to get the best of the best from Dallas week 18, no matter what the situation is. But you got to look at this week. Tough game at home against Minnesota, who's already won the NFC North. And it's a week by week basis. Everything has fallen into place for the Packers to essentially take over the last spot of the wild card. 14, you have those Detroit Lions, who are just in front of those Packers in the standings as well. They've won 6 out of their last 8, but everyone's already overreacting for the same old Lions. And I'm not buying into it. This team at one point was 1-6, and here they are at 7-8, still having a shot to get in the playoffs. Beat the Bears this week, and then you got to go into Lambeau and beat them as well to get a playoff bid. It could happen, and I'm not ruling it out yet. Even as a Packers fan, somehow, if they don't make the playoffs, I'm going to be rooting for the Lions, in all honesty, just because of how those Lions fans have struggled for almost 10 years now, not making the playoffs. And Jared Goff played pretty good against the Panthers, just too little too late, as the first half woes continued. 13, the Commanders are staying put. They have a must win from here on out, as if they want to make the playoffs, they have to. They play the Browns this week, and then, as I said, the Cowboys week 18. So it's going to come with a price to pay. They're going to have to play their best, and it's going to be a physical game this week and next week as well. Washington, they have squandered a little bit, but they are still in prime position to still make the playoffs. And who's going to be the quarterback this week? Is it going to be Heineke or Wentz? We still don't know that for official yet, but if it goes to Heineke, I think the team can rally around him. But even though Wentz did some pretty good things there on the field. 12, the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming in 12th. Yes, it's an 8-spot jump, and this team, to me, just seems like they are poised for the right time to make a playoff push and win possibly the AFC South as well. Go to Houston this week, came off a big win last week, beating the Titans, who they play in week 18. And that decides the division. It doesn't matter what happens this week between both those teams. Well, Trevor Lawrence has looked spectacular these second half of the season. And speaking of second halves, the defense limited the Jets' offense to 227 total yards and held them scoreless in the second half. So this Jaguars team, it's clicking at the right time, but can they, get that last win that they really need in week 18? 11, the Giants are moving up 1 spot after a tough loss to Minnesota in Minnesota. I got to give them credit here. Daniel Jones played excellent. Saquon, another great game. And they lost on a 61-yard field goal for another Vikings 1-score game that they win. And it just seems like the Vikings get it done every week if that's the situation. But these Giants showed some fight. I really thought this team was starting to become some frauds, but now that they played this kind of game against the Vikings, essentially a playoff game, it felt like, that shows signs that this team is for real. Starting in the top 10, the Miami Dolphins fall to the last spot in the top 10 at 10. They clinch a playoff berth, though, with a win and a Jets loss next week, but they got to go beat the Patriots in New England, which is always tough to do. Tua more than likely won't start because of his concussion he suffered. In that end of the first half, he got slammed to the turf and played the whole second half, and a lot of people were blaming it on his concussion one. I'm sure, it had an effect on it. Obviously, throwing those 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter to give Green Bay the win. But Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, I've had spectacular games yet again. And can they keep that going in New England? At 9, the Baltimore Ravens, who have clinched playoff berth, are 10-5 and still hoping to get the AFC North. They need to beat the Steelers this week and win week 18 to give them a shot for that. But J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards had great games on the ground. Tyler Huntley played decent, kept them in. Lamar is expected to return this week, but if he doesn't, Huntley will get another shot. And I think they're just going to be extra careful with him just because, he is the franchise quarterback and they don't need him. It's just more about positioning for the playoffs. 8, the Los Angeles Chargers officially clinch a playoff berth with the win over the Colts last night on Monday Night Football. Nothing too spectacular going on the offensive side of the ball. Defense played very well, forcing 3 Nick Foles interceptions. Now they get the Rams at home or away, technically, whatever you want to call that, in LA. And I expect them to play pretty good this week and maybe even rest some starters next week if the game doesn't matter. 7, the Minnesota Vikings are staying put here with the big win over the Giants. They're 11-0 in 1-score games this year and probably going to be, hopefully, 11-1 after my Packers beat them. And TJ Hawkinson had an excellent game, a career day. Kirk Cousins, yet another spectacular game. Justin Jefferson setting the record for receiving yards for a Vikings player. And he's got 2 games left to even improve that number, possibly. Could he get to 2,000? That's the big question mark. Maybe, but he's going to have to have some big games. 6, the Dallas Cowboys are staying put here. And yes, I know you may want to move them up here into the top 5 yet, but they did beat a backup quarterback, and so did Philly when they played them as well. They put up 419 total yards, one of the best defenses in the league. Dak threw for almost 350, and the big reason why he did is because they left him the middle of the field. And the one I think that it turned when T.Y. Hilton just had that long catch, and that's kind of when you knew this game was almost over. But they still have a shot at the NFC East crown. They have to win their next 2. Got to start Thursday night by beating the Titans, and then got to go play Washington as well, and have to have the Eagles lose the next 2 to have that NFC East crown. I don't see that happening, but hey, it's football. You never know. Starting the top 5, the Kansas City Chiefs are moving down a spot actually after a win over Seattle. The defense played very well in this one. Travis Kelce had another great game, and so did Mahomes. But it just seems like this Chiefs team, is just a tick off from what we normally are seeing from them. And they play the Broncos this week at home. Should be a big win, easy win there. And Mahomes, yet again, should have another great day. 4, the Bengals are also moving back 1 as well on a 7-game winning streak, but they did almost blow that 22-point halftime lead, but they get the big stop when needed at the end. And they got their first win in New England since 1986, 14 years before this guy was born right here. It's been a long time for those Bengals, and you got to give them credit. It seems like they're on that magical run yet again, possibly can win the AFC North if they get a big win this week against the Bills on Monday Night Football. At 3, I'm moving those 49ers up. This team is just coming together and playing the best football I've seen from a team in a while. 8th straight win. George Kittle playing, out of his mind back in his, feels like prime was only 2 years ago, but playing how he was back then. Brock Purdy's not missing a beat from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo this year. Beat the Commanders. Big win at home. Now they go into Vegas, should take care of business there. And they're still in contention for seeding in the NFC to get that number 1 seed. At 2, the Buffalo Bills are staying put with big win in Chicago. And now they go to Cincinnati, Monday Night Football, in a game that matters for seeding purposes in the AFC. What happens here with the Bills? They get the win there, then almost certainly they're going to lock up the number 1 seed with, week 18 being a divisional game. It feels like they should win that. But then again, if they lose this, then who knows where this Bills team is going to finish for a seeding purpose. They are the EFC East champions, so they are going to be a top 4 seed and at least get 1 home playoff game. But it is a must-win for both of those teams just for seeding purposes. But Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs really need to start connecting. And I think the Bengals game is going to be the game where these two really find it. His last 3 games, he's had 10 receptions for 123 yards, which is pretty solid for about half of the NFL. But Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, it just doesn't seem right. And Josh Allen might not be able to get over the playoff woes. I'm saying it right now. If he keeps throwing these interceptions, it's going to come back and bite him in the playoffs. And that's why the Bills haven't been able to move on past the Chiefs in the playoffs, because of his interceptions. At number 1, I'm still keeping the Eagles here, even though they lost to the Cowboys in Dallas. This one was more on late mistakes that they got, handed to them, handed 10 points to them at the beginning of the game. Dak's pick 6 was, here you go, free 6. And they kind of started giving it away. Dallas came roaring back. They were up 34-27 at one point. So squandered 13 straight points to the Cowboys to lose this one. And it's kind of showing. They kind of gave them a blueprint on how to expose this Philly defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson remains out and Maddox remains out. Then you got to attack the middle of the field there. And that defense is going to be hurting if these teams start attacking the middle of the field. They should take care of business, though, and rebound this week against the Saints at home to lock up the number 1 seed in the NFC and the NFC East. But that's going to be it for the video today. If you liked it, hit that like button down below, comment where your team ranks, and as always, hit our subscribe button to be entering into our giveaway. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.